welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria and the network service of the NTA, and the next discussion is on inclusion of persons with disability. And you know, as the 2023 elections draw near, different stakeholders have been advocating measures to enhance the election and also ensure the inclusion of all eligible Nigerians, including the vulnerable, like people with disabilities. How prepared are Nigerians and INEC to ensure that people with disabilities are not disenfranchised before and during the exercise? That's a focus of discussion at this time around, and joining us to x-ray this issue is the CEO and founder of the Albino Foundation, Mr. Jack Apelli. He's joining us via Zoom from Calabar. Many thanks for joining us, Jake.
Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. We also have with us in the studio here in Abuja the Assistant Program Manager of the Albino Foundation, Mr. George Dominic. Many thanks for joining us.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, viewers.
All right, well, we're glad to have you both for this second conversation on Good Morning Nigeria. Let me begin with Jake Apelli, because I recall that on Good Morning Nigeria, we've focused essentially on persons living with disabilities with regard to their participation in elections. And in some of the off-cycle elections, Jake, you've also been an observer or a monitor in those elections. We've had interactions with you. And now, of course, there's also legislation, that's to say part of the Electoral Act, relating to how to, of course, ensure that there's greater, if not fuller, participation of persons living with disabilities. So what are the issues now ahead of the 2023 elections?
Well, I don't know if you remember my last appearance with you, that's a few years ago. You did ask a very intriguing question. You said, well, you guys are doing a lot of advocacy and ensuring participation of persons with disability, but where are the laws? Well, the answer is that that got me thinking, and we went back and continued strategic advocacy to engage the National Assembly. The result is Section 54, subsection 1 and 2 of the Electoral Act 2022, which now makes it mandatory and legal for persons with disability to participate in the electoral process, not by way of tokenism or doing us a favor, but by law. So first we have the law, which makes it mandatory for INEC to include persons with disability. Two, the community are ready, well sensitized. For the first time in the history of this country, we are going to have 15 persons with disability. I believe 5 in the Senate were contesting to go to the Senate, 8 for House of Representatives, and 3 for state houses of assembly. And so you will agree with me that the work we've done, the support we have gotten from institutions like yours, are paying off handsomely. And so we have the law, we have the policy, and we have the strategic practice, one of them being the introduction of what we call from the foundation Able to Vote, which is a voter education sensitization campaign designed to reduce voter apathy to the barest minimum. We've gone around the zones as much as we have the resources to do. We've covered the 6 geopolitical zones. States are asking for it. Institutions are asking for it. And we will continue to make sure that our community will take advantage of the enabling laws we have, the willingness on the part of INEC to drive inclusivity, the opportunities that the society is given to us. On the other hand, in the foundation, we've designed guidelines for INEC, which is an instrument that we came together as community of persons with disability to formulate. We do have a guideline for the political parties, because the greatest problem around political parties is their internal democracy, which is not very democratic to accommodate persons with disability. Some political parties have gotten it right, others are trailing behind, but we will not give up. We'll continue until we see it done. And the third is the guideline for inter-security agencies. We recognize these three-tier levels of organs that if we are able to bring them on board, then we will have a smooth sail in our drive for inclusivity in the electoral process. And of course, what can we say? What the likes of NTA has done to bring us where we are today. So we are ready. We are not only asking to be given the opportunity to vote, we are ready to be voted for.
All right, thank you so much, Jake. Brilliant submission there. Talking about the law, the policy, everything in order, and getting ready for the 2023 general elections. But Judge, despite all the positives that Jake has mentioned, one challenge still associated with persons with disabilities is the gap in knowledge. Now, ahead of the 2023 general elections, would you say that this challenge has been addressed, and how?
Yes, so as you heard our CEO said earlier, the Able to Vote campaign, a voter education campaign targeted at PWDs, which was run across the 6 geopolitical zones to bridge that gap of knowledge. Now, it was aimed at reaching persons with disabilities with the information they need. They need to know that this is the provision that has been made for them.
You mean over the 19 million people living with disabilities across the country?
Yeah, so of course we targeted it actually was launched in Abuja here on the 19th of October 2022. And we targeted the 6 geopolitical zones. 19th October Abuja here, North Central. 24th of October Kaduna, which is Northwest, and then 31st of October that's Northeast in Gombe State, and then we move from there to Port Harcourt, that is South on the 7th of November 2022, and from Port Harcourt we went to the Southeast state of Enugu, and then from there we moved to Lagos 21st of November 2022. So you can see a strategic. We targeted persons with disabilities across the states in each of those zones, and they were invited and they came together and we had a discussion. Now this was done in collaboration with INEC. Now INEC informed persons with disabilities about the things put in place, the legal provision for their inclusion in the elections, and of course INEC has done a lot in that regard. And so of course persons with disability need to know that this is provided for you, the things that have been put in place so that you can vote seamlessly. Now, so those barriers and those difficulties have been eliminated. They need to know. So that is an effort to bridge the knowledge gap among persons with disabilities when it comes to elections.
I'm wondering that Jake earlier was taking off some of the persons with disabilities who are also seeking election in 2023. What has been the reception that they have received from potential voters in the course of their campaigns?
Yes. We are not only saying, of course I'm a person with disability too, so we are not saying person with disability can vote. We are now saying that beyond being able to vote, person with disability can be elected. They have what it takes to run for offices and win elections. Now, I must tell you the truth that from my experience in interaction with persons with disabilities, the electorate, and of course the candidates who are vying for offices, there is this understanding that it is time for persons with disabilities to also be voted into offices. Now, I'll give you an example. Lois Auta contested for House of Assembly in Kaduna State under APC and ran for primaries. And the community of persons with disabilities, that is the National Association of Persons with Physical Disabilities, organized a press conference in order to create awareness about her candidature So that's the support that persons with disability who are candidates are getting from the community. They realize that without them being involved in policy formulation, being involved in decision making, there will not be much that can be achieved. So persons are now coming out, and of course the community is supporting their own to ensure that they get into offices.
How much the community supporting will get to see when the elections actually, get down in February and in March. So we'll actually see the figures and see how many people with disabilities will actually get the positions they're vying for. I'll quickly come to you, Jake. Earlier you talked about all the things that are working for people with disabilities and how you're very prepared for the 2023 general elections. Outside people with disabilities, one issue, the minds of many Nigerians at this point, as we prepare for 2023, is the issue of security. I'd like you to dwell specifically on that. What kind of security arrangements, would you like to see for people with disabilities, or what kind of interventions have you sought so far, just to ensure that people with disabilities are safe during this process?
Thank you very much. Brilliant question. Well, like the last submission, I did say that as an organization in partnership with the community of persons with disability, and by the way, Saturday is International Day for Persons with Disability, and I want to salute and shout out to all persons with disability in Nigeria as we prepare to do that. With that said, we did develop a guideline, and I want to say that I was surprised the kind of meaningful contribution that I got from various agencies, security agencies, especially a commendable contribution from the Chief of Defense Staff Office, and the quick and swift response that I got from the Chief of Defense Staff. I was taken aback because I never knew they would pay attention to things like that. So we do have a guideline designed for all inter-security agencies, educating them on one, what the law says for persons with disability. I give you an instance, an example, a heartbreaking example, where some security agencies during Ekiti election didn't know that persons with albinism are also part of persons with disability, and when they were coming to take their turn to vote, exercising the provision in the Electoral Act for priority voting, they were turned back. So we have a lot to educate the inter-security agencies. They need to know what the provisions are. They need to know what the practical practices are. What is it that persons with disability require? How can they help them? You will agree with me that once there are security breaches, the people that suffers most are persons with disability. I won't see you when you're trying to wave your hand and asking me to take cover. So I'm most vulnerable. The person in a wheelchair will not be able to run if there are issues. The hard of hearing will not hear at all. The blind will not see at all. Those even with hands will have to struggle because they'll probably, without hands, will not have one way or the other to help themselves, even if they have to hold some rails. So the issue, I agree with you, is a huge, a Herculean task when it comes to security. So we are engaging the security agencies to understand the security implications when persons with disability are not adequately catered for. We are in every meeting with INEC that there is an opportunity to address the security agencies, and I want to say particularly about security issues in this country. Our security agencies need to be more proactive than reactive, because oftentimes what we see is a reactive tendencies on the part of the security agencies. Why do you want to wait until something happens before you start running and trying to intervene? Why don't we begin to practice how we can stem those security breaches even before they happen? So intelligence sharing, intelligence gathering, intelligence dissemination to the agencies that need it. And these agencies must stop working against themselves. You have nothing to prove. You don't have to be a DSS to show that you understand the security architecture more than the police. They need to work as a team so that we can solve and seal the issue of insecurity in this country. And this insecurity are flashpoints as we glide towards 2023. I want to also say that no matter what the challenges are, this election will hold. This election will be free, it will be fair, it will be credible, it will be inclusive. It will hold. If we have that optimistic view and practice towards achieving 2023, we will achieve it. Nigerians are a great country. We're very determined people. If we want to do something, we will do it. And that's why people like me turn down several opportunities to be another country's citizen. This is one country that we have. We must passionately protect her integrity. We must passionately protect her sovereignty. This is the job for everyone. And thanks for NTA for all that you're doing. And please keep doing it, even when no one is patting you on the back. Keep doing what you're doing. The country is listening. The whole world is listening. Persons with disability needs to be in a same environment like every other person.
All right, Jacob Pele, thank you very much there for the points that you have raised. I want to stay with you, and of course, if you can make your response a lot briefer so that we can come back to the other guests in the studio before we sign off. Elections are not an end in themselves. Elections are intended to bring in the government, and once you have a government, there's their concern about governance. What kind of messaging is the PWD community getting now from candidates and from political parties in terms of enhancing the advantages that the PWD community currently has? Or is it just business as usual? Is the messaging to the general population? Or is the messaging also being specific to your community? I'm saying this whether at the national level or at the subnational level.
Thank you. You never stop asking intriguing questions. Let me say that we've been engaging without being political. We are a political institution. Every of my colleagues in the office knows that you don't have to belong to any political party. Now it's important to say that we're a little bit disappointed because most of the candidates are not speaking or saying anything about what they will do for persons with disability. Their campaigns, some of them, their campaigns are not inclusive. Their statements are not inclusive. It's as if we don't matter. And I took to task one presidential candidate, when I read his blueprint, I won't mention the name, and I didn't see anything about disability. And I confronted him, and I said, there's nothing in your blueprint that speaks to inclusivity of persons with disability. Anyway, he tried, it's there, but it wasn't. Eventually, I asked him a simple question. Will you make sure that person with disability will be in your cabinet if you win? He jumped at it and said he will. I should bring something he wants to sign, and I will hold him accountable. So, sir, the campaigns are not too many of them are inclusive. Their blueprint or manifesto are not specific on what they will do for persons with disability. And finally, I'll take it back to the candidate. On Wednesday next week, we're bringing all the candidates that will contest this election in a conference called Electability Convergence. We're bringing all of them together so that we can teach them how to campaign, how they can raise funds for their campaign, how they can retweak, if possible, their messaging, and how they can carry themselves. Because 3 three things will make a leader that Nigeria is looking for: competence, character, and capacity.
All right, thank you so much, Jake. Of course, the political parties, like you rightly mentioned, need to do more, and that is clear. Well, I would like to ask George quickly, outside the fact that political parties, INEC, government, everybody needs to play, an active role to ensure that people with disabilities are carried along as far as elections are concerned in this country. How would you respond to, Section 54, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act, which actually allows people with disability to be accompanied, to cast their ballots, and probably help them do the needful during the process. Do you think that this would enable people with disability speak with one voice, looking at things that could play out in that process? Or do you think that there are other ways that people with disability can be part of the election without necessarily having to do that, like maybe find a different way where people with disability can actually vote, so that you're sure that they're actually voting their conscience and nothing is being, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
So if I get you right, you are looking at interferences that will come as a result of helping persons with disability to cast their votes.
Yes.
So of course, we are evolving, we are coming up. Like I said earlier, INEC have been doing their bit in putting things in place based on the requests, advocacies that have been going into it. Of course, the Abuja Foundation have done so much in that regard, and have collaborated with INEC to come up with some of these things. But of course, we hope that we're looking forward to a time that everything will be put in place in such a way that person with disability could do things unaided. One of the challenges we have in the developing countries is the fact that our infrastructures do not allow room for persons with disability to really on their own do things unaided, but we are getting there. But for now, these are the provisions we have. There may be concerns around that, but we can't but do that for now. But when time comes, we believe that time will come when we will be able to have persons with disability cast their vote unaided by anybody.
George, I still would like to ask you the question that I posed to Jake regarding the kind of messaging that the PWD community is getting from the candidates at the national and at the subnational level. It's given some explanation regarding what a candidate promised. Yes, I will admit and of course engage persons with disability in my cabinet if I win the election. What are you hearing from your community at the subnational level? Because oftentimes we know that neglect at the subnational level is rampant. What are you hearing? Is it the same vibrations that you're getting to hear? Are you making the same pitch as you are making now on a national public broadcast forum as you would at the state level, to say, look, at the state level, we want to see concerns, we want to hear concerns for persons with disability, we also want to see their inclusion in governance after elections or before elections. Let they be included. We're talking about 2023. We know that local government elections have been taking place. Nobody talked about whether there was inclusion or no inclusion, because we know how those local government elections usually are conducted. 99.999% going to one part. So what are you hearing from the subnational entities with regard to inclusion of the PWD community in the course of elections and post-elections?
Yes, so that's one concern we really have in terms of the inclusion of persons with disabilities at every level. The truth is that up to now, a lot needs to be done concerning the inclusion of persons with disabilities, even at the local level. That is the target of our Able to Vote campaign. Our Able to Vote campaign now has become a brand of its own. So it's not going to just be at the national level. We are taking it down to the state level, down to the local government level, so that this awareness will be created everywhere, even at the grassroots level, and so that person with disability will come up and understand that they have a right, to this thing. They are part of they are part of the society, and they should be involved in development. You can't talk about development without talking about politics and elections. Now, of course, the 3rd December is the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, and the theme for this year is transformative solutions to include, for inclusive development. And so you can't talk about development without talking about politics and elections. And so right now, states are beginning to take ownership at the local level. SEC, we are engaging with SEC to ensure that they are also, get involved in this, so that we can take it down to the grassroots, down to the local government, everybody involved. This is a stakeholder thing. This is not just for persons with disabilities. What we're talking about, inclusion is not just about persons with disabilities, it's about our society. It's about development. Everybody should be involved. Everybody, you don't have to have a disability for you to be a part of all of these issues. So we are going down there. A lot needs to be done, and we are working at it to ensure that that is achieved.
All right, George, thanks. And Jake, also thanks. We're not signing you up just yet. We want to take an excerpt from a statement issued by the chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, on measures being in place to ensure the inclusion of persons with disabilities in the course of the 2023 elections.
The law has enabled the Commission to deploy technology in elections, and it's also very strong on inclusivity, particularly for persons living with disabilities. Provision of assistive devices for persons living with disability is now a legal requirement as far as the resources permit. And we have been, as a commission, been deploying some of these assistive devices in the off-season elections. For instance, for the visually impaired, we have introduced the Braille ballot guide that will enable them to vote unassisted in elections. And for those suffering from albinism, we introduced the magnifying glasses. And for the deaf, we have posters.
All right, that was the INEC chairman speaking on aspects of inclusivity for members of the PWD community in the 2023 elections. Jake, you heard the chairman of INEC there. Your thoughts, briefly.
Yeah, but first and foremost, I want to say that, yes, the chairman is absolutely correct, and it's true that with the support of the Albino Foundation, INEC is acquiring magnifying glasses. Not that we're buying it for them, but we recommend it, and I want to really commend Professor Mahmoud, because Professor Mahmoud insisted that Albino Foundation must sign off on the magnifying glasses, and it's been used in Ekiti, and it was globally endorsed. People love it. But real quick, the issue of community-based engagement when it comes to electoral process, especially persons with disability. So I am here in Calabar, and I'm meeting with the chairman of SEC and all his commissioners. We're going around meeting with critical stakeholders just to sensitize them of what the law says about the inclusion and how they can be included. I am very community oriented. I want to see democracy trickle down to the hamlets in this country where my legs can carry me to. And so we will continue to do that, continue to engage, and that's why we need NTA. You have the reach that most other media houses don't reach. You can get into the local entities, the local communities. That's why we are on today, just to further sensitize our community of what we can do. That not only will our vote count, nor our voice count, our vote must count. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you so much, Jake. Because of time, we may have to leave it at that point. Thank you so much, Jake Apele, the CEO and founder of Albino Foundation, for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jake. And of course, thank you, Mr. George Dominic, the Assistant Program Manager of the Albino Foundation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
It's about time to talk sports, and I'm sure that Kingsley has been keeping up with the World Cup. And
yes, but I'm not a reporter of the sports story at this time. I mean, I have, just before we take the sports, I have my own views about sometimes the quality of officiating and some of the matches that we have seen, at least in the round robin stages. Argentina, that lost its first match to Saudi Arabia, has qualified for the next round, defeating Poland by 2-0. But I thought that the penalty that was awarded against Poland on account of an alleged foul on Lionel Messi was undeserved. And happily, the Polish goalkeeper stopped that penalty. And I thought also the equalizer by Griezmann against Tunisia ought to have been allowed as an equalizer. Tunisia won big, defeating the defending champions France by 1-0. But of course, Tunisia is already out of the World Cup.
Exactly.
Let's hear more from our sports crew.